Studying philosophy is an extremely important aspect in my life. It's something that I derive great joy from. And although I will be making a tier list video of, the philosophers that I've read in the future, I want to tease it a little bit, and I want to offer my top 3 picks for philosophers that have helped to shape my own personal philosophy today. So I have a couple of them right here. Actually, I have all of them right here. So without further ado, as much as I love Adam Smith, I would say that The Wealth of Nations, of course, I'm trying to get through right now. It's terrible. It's really, really terrible for right now, mainly because it's so dry, but it's very interesting in so far. Number 1 would probably have to be Socrates. I've reviewed Plato's The Trial and Death of Socrates. Mainly the reason for it is because he essentially he was really good at asking really, really tough questions, and questions that really bore down into what an idea is and why are we asking this question, but ultimately the fundamental question of who am I? And I think that for me, that's why Socrates is extremely important. I also love the Socratic method and the Socratic dialogue, where essentially we keep asking questions to our opponent in order to really distill the pure essence of the idea. And I think for me, that's it's been extremely inspirational. And yeah, he's also arguably the father of all Western philosophy as well. So I can't not include him as well. It's a little bit of low-hanging fruit, but at number 1 of course, these are in no particular order. My first in my top 3 is definitely Socrates. My second one, which, shifting gears a little bit, would probably have to be Hegel. And again, this is a relatively new edition, as I've only recently started reading Hegel, but the dialectic that he has, for me, is very, very important, where you have, thesis A and antithesis B, combine the two of them through synthesis and C to make C, and essentially where every idea has its opposition, and if you combine the two of them, then you will create this brand new idea. Hegel is one of those ones that I'm not necessarily familiar with. I wouldn't consider myself to be an expert on him by any stretch of the means, as I've only within the past year recently started reading him, but it is just he's an unbelievable wealth of knowledge. And I think that his ideas, especially as I'm reading The Elements and the Philosophy of Right, I'm really interested to see what he has about the concepts of right. But yeah, really his dialectic, his Hegelian dialectic, I should say, has been extremely inspirational for me in order to create my own personal philosophy and to help me to continue to develop. Now, of course, lastly, I will say this one has probably been the most influential recently. This might be a little controversial, but I don't give a shit. It's Friedrich Nietzsche. And the reason for it, I know Nietzsche gets a lot of flack for being, some people are calling him, a nihilist, everything like that, which I don't think is a very accurate assessment of Nietzsche. He doesn't condone nihilism at all. He essentially says that when God is dead and we have killed him, that essentially means that we've killed an objective truth. Now, in a completely subjective world, nihilism can be, essentially there's always the danger of nihilism to come in. And I mean, he's been kind of vindicated. There are a lot of nihilists out there these days. With the more knowledge that we have, the more that we realize everything does get subjective. But I think that with Nietzsche as well, he does offer, especially with his 3 metamorphoses, from the camel into the lion into the child, and the creation of new values is really, really groundbreaking stuff. But also, I really appreciate his concept of his thought experiment of the eternal recurrence, which a lot of people find extremely terrifying. To me, I don't. I think it's a wonderful thought experiment because, and I mean, getting a little technical into it, Nietzsche essentially, when developing that, wanted to be the anti-Schopenhauer. He wanted to be the ultimate yes man to, the ultimate no man. And because Nietzsche prioritizes will to power as well. So through the eternal recurrence, if you've experienced joy within your life, joy in and of itself would want to replicate itself. So if there was an eternal recurrence, let's say, you've experienced joy in your life and you die, and then everything happens exactly the same way as it does before, you'll still find that joy and you'll keep finding that joy all the time. So essentially your life won't be bad if it were to repeat itself, because joy is self-replicating and it always wants to find joy. So maybe that's a terrible way for me of explaining it. Nietzsche is the one that I'm most familiar with, just because I've been reading him the longest, him and Socrates, I would say, of the three. But his concept of the will to power, his fierce polemic against organized religion, his takes against democracy are a little bit, they open the door to some pretty scary interpretations, as we saw with his sister essentially doctoring his texts and completely, for lack of a better word, molesting his philosophy for her own, disgusting ideals. And it's left him with a sour, the name Nietzsche may still have a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. But if you read his texts, it's undeniable that this is someone who's really focused on human potential and how one should live if one wants to maximize it. And I think that, especially in this day and age where we have, we're bombarded on YouTube shorts with self-improvement and, we all Sigma males, we've got to be on that grind set. It's a really nice antidote to see, maybe not so much an antidote, but it's nice to see that even in the 1800s, people were still thinking about this. Because again, the Sigma male and the self-improvement is not a new concept. We've always been trying to be better than our fathers and our mothers. We've always been trying to be better than the ones that came before us, so that way we can make it easier for the ones that come after us, and so that way they can achieve more than we do and eventually become a new species of human. So who knows what will happen if we followed Nietzsche to the letter. But his work, not only is it beautifully written, but it's so relevant in this day and age. As you can imagine, as you can see, I've talked about him the longest because I've read about him the longest. So anyway, those are my top 3 draft picks at the moment for developing my own personal philosophy. So that's Socrates, Hegel, and Nietzsche. If you want to see me do a video on any of those separately, let me know in the comments below. Feel free to drop a like on the video as well. I will be releasing a tier list of the philosophers that I have read in the near future, so keep your eye out for that one. But as always, thank you so much for watching.